go. Uh, Brett, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Well, I can't hear the studio, but it says I'm connected. I don't know if you're going into the studio, so I need a third party to tell me what we're hearing. I apologize, Brett. This is the first time I've used somebody myself direct to Skype. Let me call in. Hold on. Let me call in on another line.
Okay.
Let's see. 425-292. I apologize, folks. If you can hear me, I'm not even sure if I'm on the air because my producer is doing 6 hours today, and I've got to figure this out myself using Skype today as our new show, trying all these gadgets. I usually just call in. Okay, let's see. I've got Brett Luter here, and I'm excited to have him, but I'm trying to connect him with Skype. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, I guess I'm online, but let's see. I don't have let me see if I plug this in, if this works. And folks, I know this sounds funny, but I usually just call in. Normally I can do my show, but what I'm trying to do is get Brett Luter connected with Skype. Tommy, can you hear me?
Where's Ahmad Painter? Mad Painter.
Oh, I can hear you good. Ahmad that does our production is, I don't know. Let me get him here. Let's see. I hate to bother him. He's probably taking a nap, but
I got a message from him Friday on Skype saying he's connecting with me for your show.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, can you talk to him?
No, I didn't talk to him. I just got the message today, and then I sent him back a message saying I'm here, and I haven't heard back.
Okay. Well, he may be out. He's been having a lot of trouble. It says go to call. Let me see if I can go to call. Add to call. Ahmad Painter. Let me see where Brett Luter is. Let's see. Folks, I know this sounds funny, but I don't usually produce using Brett Luter and Skype. And I know that, let's see, it says, where's Brett Luter's name on here? I'm looking for you, Brett. It says connect. All these wonderful people. My goodness, all my entire Facebook is on here. So, folks, I don't usually use Skype. I have to learn because I always had a producer. And anyway, let me see if I can get Tommy on here, if he can explain this. Tommy's used Skype, and he's my co-producer for 7 years. But it says he's on here, Tommy Sinisi, but add to call. Let me add him. Let's see. Calling Tommy Sinisi. Let's see if this works. Brett Luter's Tommy, and it says 2 of 3.
Hello?
Hey, Tommy, can you hear me on the radio show?
Yep, I hear you now too. I called in on Skype, but you just transferred me over.
Okay. Well, so you could hear Brett. Could you hear Brett too?
Hi, Tommy.
Greetings, I hear you fine, yes.
Okay, great.
So you think we'll be recorded then on the studio?
Yep.
Okay, well, welcome, Brett. This is exciting. I didn't know because there's so many studio buttons to push, and I've never called in on Skype into my studio to know how it worked. So apologize, everybody. It's a slow start, but let me read what I'm doing today for the first time since I believe you can hear me. Now, Tommy, if I put you on mute, I need you to tell me if you can. How do you know if we're on the radio show now? Because you're on Skype, but how do we know we're being recorded?
Well, I'll call in from my phone. Hold on. Don't go anywhere.
All right, folks. I just want to make sure before I start the Brett Luter show that it says, great to hear. But Brett Luter, now I may have to redo this. So if you can't hear me, it doesn't matter. But we'll be late getting on the show. But hold on.
TJ.
Yes.
You're okay. You're online. You're on the show.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Well, then we can start, folks. And wow, apologize for being a little late, but my producer that runs many radio shows for many people, including me and Janet Lesson, and Janet's going to do a show right after me with Brett. And I don't know if she can do this either. She'll probably have to go through this. But Brett Luter received his bachelor's degree in journalism from Chico State University in 2000. That's in Northern California. Now, since then, he's gone on to write roughly 700 articles on music, alternative history, spirituality, and UFOs for such magazines as Magical Blend Magazine, UFO Magazine, Reggae Festival Guide, the Chico News and Renew, and currently Phenomena Magazine online out of Scotland. Wow. And Paranoia Magazine out of Northern California Bay Area. So others as well, but we just mentioned those few. He's quite an accomplished journalist. He's written at least 2 books, maybe more, but I didn't try to update any of this yet. But the first is Song in Your Heart, the story of the search for the lost note, Volume 1, released in 2008. It's the first in a 3-part series titled The Esoteric Guide to the Reggae Vibe series, illustrating the role of the roots Reggae Rasta. And so that's going to be interesting. But in terms of global struggle for the control of human consciousness, so I guess he has a twist on that. But Volume 2 tells of a heavy heart, UFOs, magic, and impending doom. And it says due late 2018, so I imagine like I need to update this. I might have grabbed one that's not fully up to date. So in the most recent book, A UFO Hunter's Guide, wow, that was released in 2012, and Tommy just did one. So we'll get all this down the first hour of what I'm trying to create with Brett and Tommy. And they've got a lot in common since they both wrote, and I wrote UFO books. But anyway, that was by Weiser in San Francisco, and later breaks down the muddled field of ufology into possible chunks, both highlighting the field's infamous history and the context with which a ufologist finds themselves today. So unlike any other book on the market, it includes tips from the pros, as many others today that are top investigators contribute key factors. And we're going to talk about all of that today because I'm doing Ascension Church Ohana, and it's a metaphysical group, Ace Metaphysical Church, but we're going to approach that with strategies pertinent for any investigator, including me as a senior journalist with the Society of Professional Journalists, and Brett Luter, who is a very well known at these events out in the California area. But it says that the speakers from the Bay Area UFO Expo, titled The Esoteric Guide to the Bay Area UFO Volumes 1, 2, and 3, which is a 3-disc set of interviews in the works, which I need to read. So because I don't deal with the California Area Expo since '93. I did what was called Expo. What was it called? Eco Expo. Most recently, Luter produced a new 2-disc DVD set titled The Inside Mount Shasta in 2017. But he can update us on that. But what's brought him to me is I want to do life stories on Sunday in our Ascension magical world. And I had to look up the proper way to spell lens, because you can spell L-E-N-S or L-E-N-S-E. And being that he is a journalist, I wanted to get it right. So I used L-E-N-S of those. And we're going to do a greetings from Tommy and then let Brett get on here. But I was wondering about the lens of myth or history of ufology and PR, meaning we'll get into all that. So let Tommy, you go ahead and do your greeting as my co-host, and then we're gonna let Brett take over. Go ahead, Tommy.
Greetings, everyone. Tommy Hawksblood here, calling from the Big Island of Hawaii. We've got a great guest on today. Just welcome everybody. The show's going to be getting bigger and better as we keep moving along and get everything organized. So try to stay with us, be a part of it. You can become a member, be part of a group. We've got a lot of different things going on now. We try to keep Sunday, I do anyway, to try to keep it spiritual, pertaining to a more down-to-earth, realistic truth. But in the interim, we got lots of things going. I got my new book coming out. I'm sending it to everybody as a JPEG with pictures, and then it's going to be a regular file of how to see a UFO. And I know you did something like that too, Brad. So we can talk about that sometime later, maybe. But yeah, I've been involved with UFOs all my life, ever since I was 6, so it's not like something new. And then we started filming thousands of pictures of ships and creatures and entities. So my life's been around that as well as a spiritual quest. But back to TJ. Thank you. Greetings, everyone.
Thank you, Tommy. I really appreciate you coming and helping me out with Brett. I wasn't sure I could do a interview by myself. And Sundays, we're, like Tommy said, we're building our ACO Association. And I'm not sure that Brett knows what I'm doing to create community, but he creates his own. Maybe we can get them together. So Brett Lueder, BRETLUEDER, author and speaker, and I guess you're going to be producing other things besides music, but we have a lot in common. So Brett, I'd like to have a formal introduction from you, because I know you also do co-hosting as well. So you go ahead and give your best co-host type of intro, please.
Okay. Yeah, periodically, Monique Lasan, who also has a show at Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. Her show's titled The Matrix of Perception, and every so often she invites me on as a guest co-host, and every so often when she leaves, she'll ask me to host a show. So I get a little broadcast journalism experience and exposure there, as well as, you mentioned, my 2 books and my upcoming 3rd book, Tales of a Heavy Heart, UFOs, Magic, and Impending Doom, which is volume 2 in the Esoteric Guide to the Reggae Vibe trilogy. Do you know who Bob Marley is, TJ?
Oh, yeah, my next door neighbor is my son-in-law, and he's black and Indian, and in his living room is the big Marley poster, and he's a big Reggae Marley fan. So my granddaughter is half Indian black like he is. So I guess he's like a fandom person for Bob Marley, but isn't he the reggae musician? I'm a musician, I should know, but yeah. I never played reggae. But you tell me who he is.
When I talk about reggae to the Western world, Bob Marley's the most recognizable name. So I usually lead off with Bob Marley. But when I talk about Bob Marley in my book, I put him in a little bit more specific category than the broad category of reggae, because that covers quite a few different genres within the reggae umbrella. But what I talk about in my book are what's known as the roots reggae Rastas, and those are Rastafari that play roots reggae music. Now, roots reggae music, to distinguish from, say, like dancehall or reggaeton, is the original form that came out. When reggae came out, it was in the form of roots reggae, meaning it was like the folk music of the poor people of the island. And it had a certain sound. Rhythmically speaking, it had a skank, which is a
Hold
technique.
on. Tommy, you're going to have to put your Skype on mute. Do you know how to do that?
Okay, no problem.
Okay. I'm sorry, that's lesson number 101 as a co-host on Skype, is we have to learn how to mute when we're not talking, because he and I both have a dog. So I'm sorry, Brett, we're starting all over on Sundays today without, I really thought he was going to be here, and like he said, he let you know, so something had to happen, but he's been having a lot of trouble with his equipment, okay, and I'm sure he'll help Janet today. So thank you for mentioning. My producer is Thomas Becker, but he goes by a Mad Painter. He is the Mad Painter, and he does a Mad Look at Reality on Sundays, and Monday he has he has open canvas here on Revolution Radio and on TJ Morris ET Radio, and together we run Cosmos Radios, plural, and we run Cosmos Expo, and we run American Communications Online, and now he's running the ACO Club, or ACO Radio Club, with me and others that join us in the Advanced Communications Agency, and my American Communications Online. Woo, a lot of ACOs. So we'll explain all that to Brett, but I brought him on for this Ascension Church Ohana today because we're sort of a metaphysical thing, and we're leading off with Brett and reggae. So we have music, and I guess we're going to enjoy reggae. And back to you, Brett. So fill us in on this interesting Sunday with you, starting this day off, this church off. Can we say church is the people? Can we agree on that? Because three of us have never been together. So is it okay to say metaphysical church with you, or is that offensive?
I don't care.
Cool. Because the church is the people. I wonder if the reggae people feel that way. music and words. But all right, well, keep going. Thank you so much. I'm just excited you're here.
So, well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be a part of the renewed kickoff of the show. I'll always be your guest number one, I guess. If
yes, you
this
will.
Is the start of something new. So, but anyway, what I was saying was that a roots reggae Rasta guy is a Rastafarian that plays roots reggae music, and so roots reggae music was the music, the original reggae music that started the whole thing. It came out of Jamaica, and it was basically the folk music of the poor people, and so they would use it as a news source. So if some artist would have a new song in the ghetto in Trenchtown, they'd play the song and people would get their news from the song. And so that's
cool.
It's a real social interaction thing. So then when Bob Marley came along, Bob Marley is credited with bringing that to a wider audience. And so, including the United States and around the world. So what makes this music so special is not only the structure of the music, but also the ideology that's been attached to the music, and that is of the Rastafari. So when you hear reggae music that has a skank, which is like a kind of a scraping sound by the guitar, I don't know if you could hear that, but
yeah,
the guitar is more of a rhythmic instrument in this setup. The bass is more of the lead, all right, but it's really heavy bass. So I mean, you could transfer the sound of reggae into the sound of heavy metal. That's how heavy the bass is in reggae. And that's for a purpose. Now, back in the late 50s, mid to late 50s, the reggae music, which was being developed in Jamaica, was also starting to be played at certain religious meetings that grew into what we now call the Rastafari. Now, the Rastafari are people that believe that the former emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie I, Haile Selassie I, as they call him, he was the second coming of Jesus Christ. They claim that he has documents that say that he stems from the union between Solomon and Sheba, as is chronicled in the book the Kebra Negast, and that he was the actual second coming of Christ. So very controversial there, of course. Most Christians missed it if that turns out to be true. But there's this music that seems to back that ideology that's taking it around the world, and it's a global force with the music and the ideology, and it's steadily growing. It's not like the number one religion in the world, or I think in America, the Mormonism is the number one growing religion.
Really?
But around the world, Rastafari is gaining thousands of people every year. It's huge in Africa, of course, and as you could expect in Ethiopia, in South Africa, and countries like that. And I really feel like, as a Christian man myself, I was baptized Roman Catholic. I kind of went away from all that church stuff in the beginning because I realized there was a lot of what we're now seeing as pedophilia. I've known about that for decades.
Wow.
And to the Vatican, that kind of thing.
I had no idea.
I didn't officially renounce my religion, but I just never really paid attention to it until I got back into ufology. And the reason I got back into it is because in ufology and as I'm sure you and Tommy both know, there's a certain set of kind of abductions, of UFO abductions, that take on a real dark aura. And this is where it crosses over into a subject known as demonology. And so I've had some friends and some people that have come out of the woodwork to kind of tell me their stories. And in efforts to try to help them, I wound up back at church. So I don't know if you have any questions yet, but I could go off on a big story about this church that I became involved with.
Well, we're starting our own church today, the three of us, called Ascension Church Ohana. Do you know the word Ohana? Because the Bob Marley people next door and my daughter that just passed, I don't know if you're familiar with my daughter who just passed, we had the Ascension Center. And then back in 2012, Janet Carolesson agreed to help me if I would help her and Tommy. in 2012 with the Stargate to the Cosmos name for Bob Dean, gave her $500. Do you know who Bob Dean is?
Of course I do.
All right. Well, Bob Dean is the center of my education inside the government, because I was joint Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and we were Space Force. And he was tapping into that in the Paris area. I was in uniform 80 to 93. And he was in, but I didn't know that he was allowed to go to UFO events. I wasn't. So he must have retired. But I'm going to try to put together my life from May 67 till the time I retired, May 2017. And then I started getting, old people checks. What do they call those? You know what I'm saying?
Retirement checks?
There
Social
you go.
Security?
Yeah, some kind of pension or something, or Social Security. So I just live off of what I get for working, for the government. So I'm excited. I've got some money, so I spend a little money, about $200 a month, running my American Communication Online now. So, it's like $40 here on Blog Talk, $50 on Spreaker to put it out there, and then $50 on American Communications Online, and then $50 on WordPress. I've got 5 secure sockets. So it takes care of like where you keep it. And I'm going to ask other people to help me form a community now that I'm retired, and we're kicking it off today because Tommy signed up for my Allied Command Intergalactic Relations. And I know that you're a journalist, a radio co-host, and you're in public relations. So aren't you the perfect person? Plus, you just started another churchy kind of infamous history story, so you can be a historian in our religions and help us figure out myth or history of ufology. So I don't know, I'm calling it Ascension Church Ohana. Ohana meaning in Hawaiian like your, not just your blood relatives, but your extended family. Church being the people, but with the thing like you would now be my brother, sister, sort of like in reggae music, but in this whatever you, me, and Tommy are doing today. So you've got the Ascension magical lens of myth or history of ufology. So with that said, how would you like to move forward?
Well, we could, it's not a problem for me to be a part of your organization.
Oh, good. Well, it's metaphysical, I guess. I don't know. It's sort of like it's communications first, right? Because I have to have a business license. Then I've got one called Theresa J Morris Ministries, because where I live, you have to have a license to do what I'm doing, right? So this is like a church online, because what they had to do is give me a code to work for the federal government. So they gave me spiritual education, but none of that says the name of the church. So it's me, the person, me, the license, Theresa J Morris Ministries, me, the business, American Communications Online, to do a church online, and then whatever it is, we're called content providers in the business, right? We provide content via broadcast communications. So we have to meet FCC rules. So
wonderful.
So you got all the lowdown. Now we just have to work out. I have articles and bylaws called an ACO Association. That's generic, sort of business and church or temples and metaphysics all rolled into one. I've been using since back in the 85 when I was ordained in a gold church, a gold pyramid in Houston. And Steve Halpern, who's called the godfather of New Age music, was there, and he's been on my show. He remembers me from back in 85. So that's sort of cool. So we could do Rastafarian music, and would it be okay with Steve Halpern maybe to mention him and his music? You're not any musicians, or so we just need to decide who the three of us, how our energies blend, right? I guess. You're the
I'm
first.
open to whatever. I love all kinds of music.
Okay, well, we'll be open. So you can help us. Just give us all of your energy as a journalist, a co-producer, a musician, and a historian. And can you sort of lend it towards what you did for, was it the New Life Expo? I saw a little clip on something, but I liked it. You had your hair down. It was long. And I know you don't have body odor, that one. That guy was kidding you. Do you remember who that was?
I don't know.
Oh, no, you don't?
I don't.
I think it was 2016. I'm not sure, but I guess you're in so much television. Well, tell us. Just keep going with what you're doing, and we'll. Somebody
Okay.
came on 765. So give us an idea of how to bring all this metaphysical ufology. You know, because there's a David Wilcock uses Ascension, and I've got an old book I wrote years and years ago in the 80s, and it's a lot of 70s stuff, you know. But I would like to bring it and teach some lessons in metaphysics. I've got a group here called Gulf Breeze Metaphysical Meetup Group. So we can have meetup groups here and there and teach them on YouTube lines. So back to you. Help us figure all this out. I don't know what it's going to entail, but you've been talking about it for years. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Brett's on the same wavelength. So where do you go?
Okay, well, my personal take on all this, the spirituality and the UFOs, is that it's a spiritual thing first. UFOs is a spiritual thing. They're here because humanity has not woke up yet, and we cannot answer one basic question, and this is what my basic career is all about, is that who am I? We don't know who we are or where we're from as a collective or as individuals. Maybe we can answer certain questions like maybe my dad could say, well, he came to Earth to be a contractor and learn how to build stuff. Okay, maybe that's one level, but there's a multifaceted contracts that we have, spiritual contracts as to why we're here as the individuals that we are. So whether you're talking about Hawaiian indigenous spiritual traditions, or whether you're talking about fundamental Christianity or ufology or Islam or Judaism or any kind of indigenous spirituality, it all revolves around the same thing, is that who are we and why are we here? What is the purpose of a human being on Earth at this time? What is the context in which we find ourselves? And so this is what I like to do, is I read lots of books, I write lots of articles, not too many articles anymore because they take a lot of time, and as you know, you don't get paid too much for this kind of thing, and so I've got to spend other time making money. I'm a construction worker myself. That's my day job. But so when we're talking about UFOs, let's just say, people say, well, why do you think UFOs is spiritual? It's not. You know, I'll talk to fundamental Christians and they'll criticize me for thinking that UFOs are spiritual. And I tell them, I go, look, whether you think aliens are demons, or whether you think some aliens are demons, or whether or not other traditions might not, whatever, it doesn't matter. Because what I argue is that when you start to study ufology, you immediately come across some type of a spirituality, whether or not it's off-world, because if you've studied the Billy Meyer case, the lead alien there, Semyase, tells Billy Meyer about their spirituality. Okay? Or you could go to some place like Ekankar, and although there's a lot of controversy there, that's still a representation of spirituality that's not from Earth. All right? If you have studied the lady from Venus, Omnek Onek, she was at a conference in Mount Shasta a few years ago. I got to speak with her myself. She talked about Venusian spirituality. And so it doesn't really matter if you're from Earth or from another planet or whatever. Studying these things is going to point you onto the path. And by the path, I mean the knowledge towards your own self, your own personal knowledge of your own personal self and what you're doing here. And so even if it is, let's say the fundamental Christians turn out to be right, and that there are no aliens and that they're all demons, even if that's true, studying UFOs points you onto that path of who you are. Now, it might be unfortunate if you have to head right into demons, let's say, because that's going to put you through a lot of life tests real fast. But it's still going to push you onto the path of knowing who you are. So I get a lot of criticism from ufologists and New Agey type people about me being a Christian and all the baggage that goes with that. And I'm not going to argue that. There's a lot of baggage, a lot of stigma that goes with that. But I think the same is true with being a Muslim or with being Jewish. There's a lot of stigma that goes with these organized religions. But the reason why I'm back to studying Christianity again is because I had two contactee friends that were experiencing very dark experiences. They both described the experiences within the UFO context, that they were aliens, maybe reptilians or grays, that were involved in their abductions or the events that were taking place in their life, which they describe as abductions, but we really don't know if they're taken anywhere or not. It's one of the big gray areas of abductions is we can't really say for sure what's happening to these people. So after reading several books, especially Andra Fell's book, she seemed to be the cutting edge of protecting yourself from a UFO abduction. Nothing seemed to help either of my two friends. So one day, one of my friends was a lady that I was seeing here in Northern California, and one day she came into my room and her eyes were different and her voice had changed, and she walked with a much more of a wide gait, more like a man, and she began to chastise me and berate me in this other voice. And like, I knew she had some psychological issues, maybe multiple personalities, so I didn't think too much about it at the time. But this thing that was speaking through her, and it was my first or second experience actually in person seeing a being speak through another person to you. I'm telling you, if you've never had this experience, you'll probably be speechless too, because you have no frame of reference. Maybe you've seen this stuff on movies or TV shows, but to actually have it to you in person, I personally was speechless. So maybe there's other people that'll handle it better than I did, but I was just drinking it in, right? And so as I began to study this person, she wanted help. We isolated 5 of her characters. One of them had the name of Armand. Okay, and so I didn't think anything of it at the time, but I said a little prayer to God that I needed to help these 2 women. So, God, Jesus, show me what to do, okay? TJ and Tommy, within 5 hours, let's say, I was at my weekly law study group on Wednesdays with a bunch of old guys. We meet at a local diner, and we discuss the issues of law of the day. Well, out of the blue, one of these guys, Ernie Stedman, he'll always forever be one of my best friends because of this. He comes out of left field and says, "Hey, Brett, there's this church down in Yuba City, and they had a magical battle with this top wizard, and they defeated him using the name of Christ." And I almost pulled a muscle in my neck, switching my head around to look at Ernie, and I said, What are you talking about? And he said he didn't know any more information, but that there was a seminar going on at the church that whole week, and that I should go down there the next day and check it out. And so 84-year-old Ascended Master student Harold Bauman and I found ourselves in the Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City that next day. Within 13 hours, he and I were sitting in what I learned was a deliverance ceremony where people would come there to get their demons exorcised, okay? So I was just there as an observer, and long story short, I wound up having the matriarch of the church lay hands on me and speak in tongues in my ear. Other people had hands on me too, and they're praying for me, and I completely sweated out my long sleeve soccer jersey. And so by their tradition, some demons came out of me that day. And so I didn't really know what happened to me. I might not still know what happened to me, but something happened to me. So I started going to that church twice a year for their week-long deliverance seminars where they teach individuals how to get rid of their own demons using the name of Christ and the other 11 tools that they recommend. They have 12 tools that they use. And so this is not officially an exorcism training, because exorcism, I'm told, is strictly Catholic, and they have a slightly different set of tools, although there's some crossover for sure. But so this is a non-Catholic deliverance, which is what all the other Christians use, or similar things, and they call it deliverance. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say a few things. Everything you talk about, I've been involved all my life. I was doing psychic implant removals for years. I was doing exorcisms for years, and I was doing past life regressions. I worked in all the inner worlds. I work with demons, aliens, and everything. But what I was going to say is, when you say the Catholic Church, realize they're not protected. When they do exorcisms, now, the original Exorcist movie, you have to realize that was a boy. It wasn't a girl. But 2 priests died trying to do the exorcisms because Jesus Christ, the name, didn't help the person. You have to know Jesus Christ to use them. I work with exorcisms, and I mean demons and everything else. They're not afraid of the word anymore. But one of the stories that was written by one of the first UFO people out of New York City, who wrote one of the first books that went public, about how his son was, the son was actually abducted on a ship with the grandmother, and she screamed Jesus Christ, and they threw him back on the ground, but she had a stroke and died. But I deal with that. I have a friend who's the top exorcist in the United States right now, and he does 300 a year. The Pope wanted him to work for them. The Pope hired 1,500 people last year to do exorcism. Then they don't have to be Catholic, because, like I said, Catholic people, just because they say the name of Jesus Christ, doesn't mean they're protected. The same as I work with demons. They don't care what you say or do. The same as, like, the native people use sage. People use different things to keep the demons away or bring them gifts. It works for some people. It works for some things. But alien races aren't afraid of Jesus Christ either. When they do a possession, they're not going to run away because you said Jesus Christ. I've been working with that. I kind of pulled out of that because I just wanted to move forward to a greater level, because exorcisms was just too mind-boggling, because dealing with that is incredible at one level, but by the same token, the world is being possessed. And I go into detail. My latest book, which I don't know if you're interested or not, but it's The True Teachings of Jesus from God Realization, because I did walk with him. I was alive with him for the 2 months before he was killed. And I could go into that whole story, what he was teaching. And people say, I have people prophesizing that Lucifer is going to come here and get rid of, Jesus is going to come and get rid of Lucifer and all that. Jesus wasn't an alien. He wasn't a demon. He was a human. But he had 32 psychic abilities, which when he went through Ascension, attained it. So there's multiple levels. I understand what you're saying, but I've been there. I've done it. I worked with it. I worked against it. And my brother was being abducted by an alien when I was sick in a hospital. And I went over to the windows and I put my hands on the window, and a ship shot right back out into space. So I'm protected from aliens, and demons I'm totally protected from. So it's the only thing I'm afraid of is the government, because they're realistic on this planet. But again, I just wanted to throw that in because I've been working with these at multiple levels. I started hypnosis when I was 11 years old. Started doing group hypnosis at 14. So when people say this and that, I never had training. I became a witch for 6 years. I learned about all the psychic powers. So when people talk about that, yeah, it's an incredible thing, but we can't use psychic abilities here on this planet because it would destroy it rather fast. I don't want to take up too much time, but I just wanted to throw that in because everything you're talking about, I was there. I've done it for years. I work with the people, the beings, the entities. The only thing I do want to say, aliens are different from demons. They're 2 separate entities. They come into the body different ways. No demon can stay inside the body while a person's active. They have to push the soul out of the body to work within it. I mean, that's why you'll hear different voices, but they got to come in and go out. But as far as aliens, they can take over a body. It's a totally different game when you have to exercise. So my one friend, he exercises aliens as well. He works with alien races on the inner worlds, and then he does the exorcisms in the physical reality. But he can do it over the phone even. I won't do that. I would never do an exorcism over the phone because I want to be next to the person. But yeah, it's an incredible, dangerous world if you don't know what's happening and if you get pulled into that kind of energy. And I want to do a couple workshops on protection and all those kind of things because I feel that that's what's happening to the planet right now. And that's what's happened to the children because parents don't know how to teach their children anything about spiritual truth or any ideas of what protection really means in a spiritual realm, how we protect our spiritual body. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in. It was a lot, but...
Well, I've got to help at a psychic metaphysical fair here in, I don't have to, I want to. A friend of mine, her name is Erica Marsha Busserhain, if anybody's interested in metaphysical psychic fairs or people that do counseling. I have a book called Ace Life Coach, but I was asked to be a speaker and a counselor in her holistic health practitioners, and we have people that sell crystals and books and do psychic readings and spiritual counseling and all of that. So we're meeting at the Navarre Conference Center on June 22nd from 10 to 6. Let me get the flyer just to make sure, because I'm going to turn the show back over because we're doing author Brett Luter out of California, but I'm in Florida and Tommy's in Hawaii, and we're trying to blend some energy, I guess would say, of all the people we know and the friends to see if they want to work in our organization or association. Right now, it's American Communications Online as the content providers. And then on Sundays, I want to do this with me and Brett and Tommy. But just real quick, June 22nd, my daughter works at the the venue. It's Days Inn and Suites, Navarre Conference Center, 8700 Navarre Parkway, Navarre, Florida, 32566, June 22nd, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I believe it's if you want a ticket for the all day and you can want readings or want to look at crystals, or we have drummers. I've been 2 years in a row, and we have one in 6 months, January and June. So I promote psychic and metaphysical fairs here in Gulf Breeze. We had James Van Prague, if anybody's heard of him, in 2018, and I like him. There was 2 television shows, but probably Brett knows more about television being in Hollywood. I had an office there for 5 years, Brett, and I was in a movie made for television, When Will I Be Loved, with Stephanie Powers. And I got my 2 children, Angela, who lives with me now, and the one that died is in a cult classic called Witchcraft 3. And you can get it, folks, Witchcraft 3. My 2 daughters are in it. Angela played a model, but Gigi was only 16, the one that just died here. She made it to 45, and she is the co-anchor owner of my church and my club, ACO. And she's the one that taught me about the word ohana, and she and I lived in Hawaii. But since I moved to Florida via the United States of America and traveling the world as an investigator, I worked for DOD and DON and the intelligence community in and out of country, and did actually finding of fact. Just get the facts, ma'am. Who, what, when, where, why, how. So it's like being a journalist. And then when I came back here with my husband, we were journalists and we worked for newspapers, but we had worked cross country driving trucks. And I learned a lot out of country, that the way we see things and the way we hear a newspaper and television and broadcasting isn't the same. So when I was in Africa and I saw what they were saying on television and stuff, but I was there, it wasn't the same. So I had to learn, even in uniform or out of uniform, that just because we think we're doing something for the right may not be. So, you have to live your life and create your own spiritual journey. So what I got into was promoting people's life stories. So that's why I created our ACO and ACE Folk Life. And not too many people can understand the difference between myth or history. But after listening to Brett Luter, he was on my show once or twice before. He had an interesting outlook as an observer. And he reminds me a little bit about me, about I don't want to be in just one religion. And my God says God has no religion. And Tommy sort of ascribes to that. So we're trying to pit together California, whatever he stands for, Brett Luter, and all those people he goes to these events out there, with my events here in Florida, and Tommy's in Hawaii. So I'm calling it Ascension Church Ohana under my ACO flag. And if you're interested, we have the ACO Association.com, and I fly all my professional groups, our entrepreneurs and my authors club, all together, because I don't want all these different, you have to keep up companies with money. It takes money, and I don't want all these accounts. I've got all these websites and different radio shows. So what I'm trying to do is have 2 accounts through PayPal. One's TJ Morris Agency at Gmail, and the other is American Communications Online. And they're both Gmails, and they go to PayPal. And then whoever donates, you can mark it for whichever Facebook club you're in or group. And so we'll invite you to do that. And then we've got it on Patreon, and I'm going to ask Brett to make him a patreon.com if he doesn't have one already. Mine is patreon.com, Theresa, it's / Theresa J Morris, Morris. So I'm your host and co-host for today. With co-host, you just heard Tommy Anthony Sinisi, but for years as an author and a co-host of mine for 7 years, God's number, he's been known as Tommy Hawksblood. But Facebook, friend him, Tommy Hawksblood Sinisi. Now this is Brett Luter, author, Ascension Magical Lens of Myth or History of Ufology, P.R. And that stands for Public Relations. So I asked him here today to kick off my brand new reality of bringing California, Hawaii, and Florida together to make this work for me as ACO, Ascension Center Organization, and the articles and bylaws that we're going to put in our church starting today. So Brett's our first, he says he doesn't mind being in our association, so he's our first guest speaker pastor, speaker minister, I don't know. He's we use Modesto. I'm a bona fide holder as a pastor with a man that authorized me in a real, what they call a brick and mortar church. So I guess I'm already a member of the Modesto because I've got paper on my website saying I am. So now back to you, Brett, because you're sort of the leader of the pack of wolves. Are we angels, or are we just people? Are we sheeple people? So back to you. Help us, guide us down this. Yeah, who are we? What are we doing?
So anyway, back to my story, and I respect Tommy's experience, but you kind of need to hear the whole rest of the thing, what's going on here. So,
because
yeah. So I've gone to now for over 8 years. I've gone to, or 4 years. I've gone to 8 different deliverance seminars. They're week-long seminars. The stuff that I've seen in there would appear to contradict Tommy's experience. You see them cast out demons all the time, right? And there's also a guy in Florida, in your neck of the woods, TJ, named Joe Jordan. Have you heard of Joe Jordan?
I think so, but I haven't gone to any of his stuff.
I forget what his website's called. Something about the experiencers, or it might be, I forget what it was. But what he did was he started chronicling testimony of abductees that were stopping abductions using the name of Christ. So I think he's up to over 300 people now. And so I can't explain why stuff works for some people and not for others. But this church down in Yuba City, when my good friend Ernie Stedman said that there was a church in Yuba City and they stopped this magical wizard using the name of Christ, that wizard turned out to be Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. So when I learned that, I was like, wow, why this church? Why didn't any other church weren't they able to stop him? And so it became a battle over his daughter. The daughter wanted out, and Anton didn't want to let her out. Well, she made her way to this church, and these church people made a stand. And the story is incredible. It's going to make a huge blockbuster movie at some point. But these church people how they described themselves before this incident was that they said they were limp-wristed Christians. Like every other Christian, they said they think they're already protected because they have Christ in their life. Well, these Christians in the Church of Yuba City said that's not true, because then why are they getting attacked? Well, they got attacked from around the world. They got animal parts and organs and stuff sent to them in the mail, other fetishes and charms. People moved into the area to try to take the church out, and all these people just kept being defeated, right? And the church people didn't actually do anything except pray. So I don't know exactly what Tommy's experiences are, and I respect them. I don't doubt that he's telling the full truth about his experiences. But just going off what I've seen at this church, I've seen them resist. There's stories that they tell where the demon will resist them for months at a time, months and months. And it takes constant beating down using their 12 tools to get them to not just leave, but what they do is they get them to admit who they are first. And when they admit who they are, then they give them the choice. You can go somewhere else, or we can send you to hell. And so some choose to go somewhere else, and they don't recommend doing that because then they're still out there. They can, if someone has a doorway open, they can still come in. So while I'm staying open to the possibility that there's more than one way to stop a UFO abduction, as far as I can tell, and with my research, Joe Jordan's the only one that has a study that claims that there's a certain way to stop an abduction, and that's with using the name of Jesus Christ. So I don't want to get into a big argument. You can talk with Joe Jordan about it. His results of his study are what they are. So as a researcher, I'm just staying open to what the results of any studies are. If there's a study that says that sage keeps away demons, I'll pay attention to it. If there's a study that says demons don't pay attention to the name of Christ, I'll pay attention to it. Right? I just want to know what the truth is. So until a new study comes along, this Joe Jordan, he's got the only study out there. So I'm going with that.
It's not that convicted criminal in Florida, is it, Joe Jordan?
I sure hope not. I don't know that that's the same Joe Jordan, but I doubt it. Okay.
There's different people with, when we use a name, regardless of what it is, can you talk a little about the myth or history of symbols, symbology, and names? Because being a journalist, we pay attention to words.
Sure.
And communications is my main thing in broadcasting. But the words, it's not just the meme or what we follow. And you may want to get into the Mandela effect as well. But folks, each individual is subjective to their own filters and their lens. And I've named this Ascension Magical Lens because one of the younger boys, I'm an old lady, I'm an elder in the church and in the Ascension Church, but I was guided by God to make this Ascension Center and to do what I'm doing today. Today is June 9th, 2019, and I've got co-host Thomas Anthony Sinisi of New Jersey, and he now goes by Tommy Hawksblood Sinisi of Hawaii, and he's doing a good job staying on top of people like Dr. Michael Sala, Joan Ocean. He even follows Corey Good. We're not endorsing anybody by me saying these names, and I don't mean pro or con. Just as a researcher, he stays very open-minded. But Tommy is opinionated like all of us. We all have our own individual thoughts, and we have past lives. So Tommy and I agreed, if this is okay with you, Brett, because no individual can own another human's spiritual path. But between the three of us, the power of three, we can each own our own spiritual journey and be responsible for our own soul. But at least Tommy and I agreed on karma and reincarnation, Brett, and God and Jesus. So you may want to read the Ascension Center ACO Association. I have so many of these group names for years, Brett. That's after God's given me 7 years with Janet Carroll Lesson of Hawaii and my AscensionCenter.network. I have Ascension.Center, Brett. But maybe you can help me with that, because that's going to be the main theme, Ascension.Center. And Tommy has helped me with Ace Folklife. And folks, you can go to Tommy's page called on tjmarsetradio.com and read on Tommy's page about how we began in 2012. The same page is on Janet Carroll Lessons at tjmarsetradio.com. And she started. So that's what we started. And Janet says, well, you mainly wrote that. I'm going to change it because I'm different and I've grown. She's very left-wing liberal, and Tommy isn't real right-wing Republican, but I found it funny that God put me with two people that are so friendly and wanted to start a if it hadn't been for Tommy and Janet, you wouldn't be talking to me today, because I was not wanting to do radio shows. I didn't want to be public with what I knew about UFOs. I was a contactee from the time I was born, and I had a UFO family, and I called them angels, and I died. So I'm an out-of-body experiencer, near-death experiencer, but I was raised as a Christian. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Convention, and then May 6, 1972, I converted to Latter-day Saint. And for all you historians, that's who used to be called Mormons. Now they're just called Latter-day Saints. But I found it odd that everywhere when I traveled after 72 forward into the government and I wore a uniform, that wherever I would be moved to, like Great Lakes, Birmingham, Alabama, to go to University of Alabama, and then to Chicago in Great Lakes area, I went to Waukegan, and then it was funny that both the churches were right next to a Jewish temple or synagogue, and I don't even know what that's called, but we believe in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and then with the Latter-day Saints, we believed in the Book of Mormon and the Pearl of Great Price and the words of wisdom, so to speak. And then after I studied all that, I started studying all world religions, history, becoming a researcher, and found the Emerald Tablet. So Tommy and I agreed on other books that he and I both had past lives. So we're sort of blending that together with Brett Luter. So Brett, whatever you can create with this Ascension magical lens, we have 55 minutes left, but I know you've got to leave a little early to go to Janet's show. So would you continue with this Ascension magical lens and help me with my ACO club, please? In the Ascension Church Ohana,
Okay.
whatever that's going to be.
I don't exactly know what you want me to do, but it sounds like it's a positive thing. So if I can help in any way, I'll do my best.
Thank you. Well, that's what I called today. You probably haven't seen your show. It's called Brett Luter Author Dash Ascension Magical Lens, LENS, of Myth, Art History of Ufology, PR. But that's helping me and Tommy create the first Ascension Church Ohana in honor of my daughter, Ohana, and extended family. And then everybody's going to have their opinion, but we've got to figure out a way to come together as the church. And I'm using the church meaning the people, Brett, and the power of three, because I believe in the metaphysical church. I think God has no religion, and Jesus was a metaphysician. So, and that UFOs exist and alien civilizations exist. So the church are the people. Right now it's me, you, and Tommy. So whatever you can make of that, I'd appreciate it.
It's all about who we are. So there's many paths to find that information, in my view.
Okay.
In terms of spirituality, every person is responsible for their own spirituality, and I like to think that I respect that. And on my own personal path, I was led down to this church. So while I can agree that man makes religion, and as soon as God's words come through the human filter and get onto paper, they change, or there's some kind of a change. That's not a perfect translation. So as I go through my experiences and I try to help these people in my life, what I'm doing is not necessarily paying attention to the man's wars and religious wars, that kind of thing, or the pedophilia of the Vatican and all that kind of corruption. I'm using and looking at the power of the name. And right now, although I've learned many magical, powerful names over the years with my own experiences through occult traditions and studies and practice, Jesus seems to be the name that, just from my experience, seems to really drive the demons crazy. Now, maybe up to a certain point they can resist, and that's what the church people I study with tell me, is that most of the demons that people deal with are what they call the garden variety of demons. A couple of Hail Marys, a couple of crosses waved, and some of them will start coming out. But they're usually run by a leader demon, which is usually, when you get to the top of the hierarchy, it's the demon that runs that specific region.
I like Lucifer. I watch the television show Lucifer. Me and Tommy like that show. That doesn't mean we like demons. We like the entertainment. But we'll have to get into the difference between Ohana at Walt Disney World and Lilo and Stitch. Do you know who that is?
I've heard of Milo and Stitch, but fill me in. Isn't that a cartoon?
Yeah. But people, I asked my other daughter today, the one that works at the venue where we're having June 22nd, Navarre Conference Center, the New Horizons Psychic Fair. You noticed I mentioned that again, psychic fair, because I'm a psychic and I do readings with tarot cards. And Tommy has promoted me and one other girl, Barbara. He used to work a lot with psychics too. But a lot of people think we're evil, that we're demons because we do tarot cards. So I'd like to have your, it's the Kabbalah, and we use like the tree of life and all kind of symbols, right? So that's why your Ascension magical lens of myth or history of ufology and PR is important, because I'm sort of combining all this together. I'm not saying anything's bad, but you mentioned a leader, so I needed to sort of throw that out, because people think different people represent different demons, right? And Lucifer could be one of those, but he's a TV show. So when I said about Ohana today to my daughter, my oldest daughter, she said, "Oh, like Lilo and Stitch." I'm like, "No, like your sister Ohana, meaning extended family." And then Tommy has another interpretation. So with our group today, should we go by what we find in Google and etymology, or are we going to recognize words on the computer? Because those can be demons too. You just said when you take God and put it on paper. Right?
Yeah,
we have to be careful.
When it moves through the human filter, man has a tendency to diplomatically, let's say, change things, if not corrupt things, right? And
okay.
So when I'm studying this tradition and trying to help these two women in particular, I'm focusing on the name and invoking the name as a name of power and protection. In my own personal life, I've had dreams where the feeling in the dream was so helpless, like I was lying in bed and couldn't move and couldn't speak and tried to and couldn't, that when I broke through that with the name of Jesus. And that's just in my own life and my own experience. Maybe because I was baptized, like Tommy says, you have to know Jesus in order to use him. Maybe that's true. But it seems like the people in Yuba City at the Church of Glad Tidings, they'll help anybody. But at the same time, they want you to live the life. They say you got to live the life to get the power. And so that's, to me, that's in all other traditions too. If you want to study the Hawaiian tradition, let's say, you got to live their lifestyle to get the power. And so no. I don't find that any different than any other tradition. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, this may be terrible. Brett, a Mad Painter, can you call me or get me, because I'm doing this on Skype, Ahmad, and I couldn't get you. Ahmad says he can only hear me and no one else. Oh no, this is terrible. This is going to be.
Oh, CJ, you're not broadcasting it from yours to the show, are you?
I asked you. That's why I asked you if you could hear me when you went to the phone.
I said I could hear you, but I can't hear myself talking when I'm talking to you.
Oh no! Oh, Brett, I can't.
Well, I'm recording it right now, so I can send it to you and you can play it.
Okay. Well, we'll have to upload your version since you're recording it, Ahmad. Oh gosh, Ahmad, can you figure this out? Because I called in. Okay. Let's see. We've got 48 minutes left, so let me call in. Oh my God, that's why I was relying on Tommy to tell me if he could hear us. Oh, this is the end of the world. Hold on. We're going to have to do this whole show. Okay. 425-292-4444. Here comes Ahmad. He'll tell us how to fix this. Oh my gosh, that's why I've got to have a producer. Mad help. I'm calling in. I don't know. I used the Skype. I used Skype to call in. Oh goodness, it's telling me only one host. So I would have to hang up. But all right, what it is I've got myself hooked in on Skype into Blog Talk Radio, but I couldn't get you. I tried, and then just to check, so I let Tommy do a sound check. So he went and because he had called into the show. So he went back and I had him check, and he went over and he listened, and he said yes, we were broadcasting. So I trusted that, but he called in. But I connected him on my Skype like you do, because I called in on Skype. So what what do I do now? Because we've only got 47 minutes left and Brett's got to go do another show. But I wanted today, June 9th, to be the day we started all three together for Ascension Church Ohana, bringing power of three together. Three different opinions to start this. Suggestions? Because Brett's got it recorded. We could upload his recording. All right, everybody, that's a good idea. So, Brett, let's end at an hour and 15 minutes, this recording, and we will have you send it to me, and I can download it on another day. Is that okay with you, Brett?
Yeah, whatever. Whatever's going to work.
Okay, and Brett says he doesn't mind joining our organization, so he can maybe help me. He's really good at this on Sundays, and Brett, we hope you will stay with us. So if everybody that heard this, Brett's got the only recording, or you can hear me, but we're going to come back and do it right this time. And I will call in. I've got to hang everything up and start the next 45 minutes. And I don't know if it'll let me go back on or not, Ahmad. We can try it. It may not let me. So drop it. All right. So I got to get off of Skype. So it's going to drop the show too, but I'll have to call back in. I know, but I called in on Skype. Let's see. How do we do this? Let's see. All right. When I hang y'all up, it's going to hang the show up on Skype. This is all new. All right. I'm sorry. That's why I need Brett. Brett, I think you're here to help me start my Ascension Church Ohana. I really do. All right. Let's see. All right. All right. I've got my show pulled up. We'll hang up and we're going to start all over again. You can tell it's the beginning of the world. I got a message from the president. He says we got a world to run. Thank you very much. Brett Leader and Tommy, whether you like him or not, he's still the president of the United States. So just no one can hear. All right, I'm going to hang this up. Okay, Ahmad, you're in charge of them and get them back online. Okay, let's try it. I'm going to hang up. Okay, talk to y'all in a minute.